Sorry. Is that still what he meant? Just something to think about.
Fiberglass, very similar characteristics as far as the layout of the hull. You can form it real nice angled.
Now we're talking about fiberglass, so we're over here. We're still, in this sign space, but we sort of got a body shift and eye gaze over to the fiberglass, say that, it's the same pretty much. One thing he mentioned was the hull. Sorry, excuse me. As I'm sitting here thinking about that, for myself, it would be, would I necessarily fingerspell that? Obviously, I would if I didn't know what part of the boat that he was actually referring to. I think when it comes to specialized vocabulary, it goes back to our brainstorm, it goes back to our predictions, it goes back to our research. When we're talking about specifics of boats, he obviously wants the audience to understand what he's coming from. That's the intent of the speaker, which I would assume. So I, as an interpreter, would want to put it out there with the most meaning that I possibly can. Just finger spelling it. What does that word mean? Where is that of the part of the boat? Is it the front, the back, the middle, the side? What does that word mean? So I think when it comes, and of course, you're not going to know every single word that's going to be spoken or, spat out during a presentation. But I think that just goes back to our need to prep for specific topics if we can ahead of time, and just have a general idea of what these words may mean once they come out, if they're said or talked about.
Layouts that are sharp or less resistant in water. And
He's talking about something sharp, less resistant in water. I don't really know what that means. Being able to see him, I'm assuming it's part of the boat and then it sort of comes out. I don't really know.
it's a touch heavier than Kevlar, and that, I guess, is probably the only.
Listening to that one, idiom, touch heavy, how does that look in ASL? How do you portray that? What does that actually mean?
Drawbacks a lot less expensive.
Only drawbacks, we're back to another con, so I think it's, need to do that shift, but obviously do not shift to Kevlar, do not shift to the middle, do not shift all the way back over to running water, but to show some sort of difference.
Then you can go into more traditional sorts of canoes, wood canvas, which is what a lot of the boats are made of around the turn of the century. It's a skin, essentially. The canvas is a skin stretched around internal sorts of braces that run.
We're talking about wood canvas, traditional, used most, wood boats, used most. He didn't say specific if it was one area versus the other, if it's used in one of the waters versus the other. So I personally would have maybe moved back to my middle ground, since I don't know which way we're going one way or the other. The other thing that I noticed that he said, wood, canvas, skin around internal braces. What does that mean? If I'm just sitting here listening to that, I would have no clue what he was talking about. To me, that was just word, 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 word. Being able to see him, it makes perfect sense. He's, here we have the wood, and then how the skin and the canvas goes around, and the internal braces, that's what he put on his hands. But if I'm just listening and I'm not being able to see the speaker, I have no idea what he's talking about. How do you set that up? When you just hear those specific words, it's like wood, okay, canvas, okay, going around what? You would assume maybe going around the bow of the boat and how it's made and things of that nature, but is that an automatic assumption, or do you sort of have to know how that needs to be put out in space so it can make sense and you can get a clear picture?
Aesthetics, and paddle's nice. They weigh about
I don't really know if I know what aesthetics means. I don't know if it's imperative to, the intent of the message, but something to think about.
10 pounds wet, 80 pounds dry, so.
Goes back to my questions of the necessity of numbers. Do we need to say 110 pounds versus 80 pounds? Is that, necessary for the message, transferring the message, or is it, when it's wet, it's okay, and when it's dry, it's nothing. I don't know. I don't think either way it has to be one way or the other. It's just something that I think about while I'm going through my interpretations of, what's a necessity and what just needs to make sure it's equivalent when it comes to the dynamics of what the speaker is presenting.
So a lot of considerations in their spending too. But the all-around boat of all-purpose and most probably utilitarian.
Just as I'm thinking all around, all purpose, how do I sound that? It's not all around. It's not all purpose, all meaningful, can use variety, different type, both. So just things like that, what do you think about when you hear those words? And what and how does that look like in ASL when it comes to your lexical sign choices? Trying to think of other things. And there again, he said, useful in a lot of different types of waters. And, I set up my variety, and that's why I'm sort of here in the middle, because it can go for either or. It was not one specific in either one of the topic areas. So I think that's, important for me to be conscious of where I'm setting things up and how I'm portraying them and how they relate to one another.
They have a tendency to stick on rocks. They'll stick and maybe tear a little bit.
I like seeing his stick on rocks because me thinking when I'm hearing it's it gets stuck, but not saying that that's not wrong to do, but it's better to show the boat and actually sticking on the rocks than it is to say it got stuck. Just another thought.
On them off the rock, put some duct tape and shoot them on them. So those are the types of boats that you have to choose from. Just how much you want to spend, what type of water you paddle.
The one thing I find interesting about this tap experience, watching him, I see a lot more of inflection, intonation, just where I need to vary my body and what I need to do. But when I'm listening to him, it's really difficult to find when those things need to happen. As I'm seeing him, I'm saying, okay, think about what cost, and I can see it in his face when he's saying, okay, these are the specific things, and that this is how I'm doing it in ASL to emphasize the specificness and the necessity of these things to think about. But what's so difficult is just listening to him. It's difficult to get that same concept. But I just think in obviously interpretation regardless, we need to listen for those and okay, when do I need to emphasize this and how do I need to portray it in my rhythm and my speed and my pace overall throughout the discourse. Other than that, I think that's the end. Okay, thank you.